Yeah. Should see. Thanks. Yeah, I think I gotta find it on Medium. Yeah, oh, I see. Yeah, GT604. Got it. All right, cool.
So the camera.
Check that out.
Oh, okay. It's pointing at
What are you gonna do?
okay, now it's gonna be okay. Uh I think the camera is also kind of okay because we're gonna like both.
Yeah, if it doesn't show me, I don't really mind.
Okay, guys. Sorry for the technicalities. Uh Today like many of us are not here because of some like conference that happening in Thailand for like DevCon. You have heard about it? Thailand. Yeah, Bangkok. DevCon. Yeah. So yeah, what time is it? We're not too late. Okay, so today me like I'm Radney and here is Yoni. We're gonna just talk about what had happened for Ethereum recently, and also like some of the interesting topics. Maybe not recently, but like in general. And we are not like so expert on all of them. Just like wanna raise the attention towards the things that we think are going to be probably the next big thing. We don't know. And so, yep, just let's see what we have here, right?
And feel free to interrupt with questions. I'll throw a mic to you,
Yeah.
and we can go on interesting tangents. Hold on, I'm gonna get the mic so we can pass that around.
Yeah.
Cool. Hold on to that for now. You might talk first. All right,
Let's see.
there we're in. We're in the frame. Yeah, I exist.
Okay. So, what is going on, Eth? First of all, I put a link here, so I guess we should be able to watch this one. It doesn't
Nice.
matter. Before getting to ETH,
Make it big.
uh, we cannot because this thing doesn't let us.
I don't. Yeah. I don't think
Anyways,
Twitter.
you can see what is happening here. So, uh, yeah, BTC all-time high again. What is the price now? It's like 70 something thousand.
Yeah, it says it in the corner there. 75 maybe.
Ooh, 75.19.
Yeah.
Yeah, congrats to everyone. So now,
I think that's an edited video, by the way.
yeah, it is definitely
Not what they're cheering for.
It's like the Binance thing, so but definitely
Yeah.
is AI edited maybe. Okay,
So Daddy Bitcoin is leading.
so this one is probably like one of the biggest things that's happening right now. Not right now. It's going to be from November 12th to 15. DevCon. So probably all of you have heard about this. Like every year, Ethereum community just gather somewhere in the world, and then they just share stuff. There are so many conferences and talks to just talk. I think. Is there anything else going on there? Thousands of side events.
Yeah, side events and it's
So
just a gathering point for whole ecosystem. Although you'd expect like alternate L1s to also have things going on.
yep,
Everyone's has a reason to go.
yeah. So you can probably ask yourself, why are we here? We don't know.
Oh, and they launched a test net to coincide with it, I believe.
Oh,
Mekong.
Mekon.
Yeah, it's a test net to do some Pectra
Oh, you mean like a
experiments.
DevNet?
Yeah, DevNet. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, okay, I know that. Probably like it's the fifth
I thought it was a
DevNet.
test net, but
I don't know because like I know the fifth DevNet was already up a few days ago, but I'm not sure if they spinned out the testnet yet.
we might be talking about the same thing. But I just read about it, so
Yeah. Anyways, So, um, this image is supposed to be white in background, but some reason it doesn't seem to be white. But anyway, so a
It's
school
transparent.
recently, yeah, it's transparent probably. They launched something they call School SDK and gadgets. Um, so it's like something too similar to the concept of like the ZK string elastic chain and the optimistic um like the super chain, the OP stack and like RB stack as well. So basically like all of these L2s are transitioning towards becoming a hub of L2s. And this thing just recently happened for school. Apparently they also are following the same path as the others. Um but which one gonna win the game eventually? We don't know. Have you ever heard about that one?
No, I have not. I'm not up to date on scroll kind of stuff.
Yeah, they did it like probably like 3 days ago, and um, yeah, let's see what happens to their ecosystem. And so basically, like if you have been here recently, we gave a talk on how these kind of like L2 hubs work under the hood. So there is like a single settlement layer on the Ethereum. It's gonna be like a single smart contract. Probably for school is also the same. I'm not sure about that, but the others are doing the same thing. And the rollups just post their proofs or like the updates of the next state root into that single smart contract. And one of the magics that it provides is they can interact without the L1 being that much involved. And so it's kind of like sharing the canonical bridge among different rollups.
Yeah, it doesn't need to re-execute things in
Yeah.
case of dispute or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
less baggage. Does it still have escape hatches? Like, say you've deposited and something goes wrong with them.
Um,
Like, does it still offer the user the ability to like ignore and withdraw?
I think like for it depends on what do you mean by escape hatch, because like we have some sort of like forced inclusions, and you have another thing which is forced withdrawals.
Yeah,
And
I
so
think I mean force withdrawal.
okay, that one definitely works. Like
Yeah,
there's nothing against that, even in case of like this hops. But for forced inclusions, I think there's only just one rollup out there, which is Arbitrum, as far as I know, that
yeah.
provides that.
Oh, sorry. That's like the delayed inbox, right? Something like that.
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah.
if
Okay.
you think about it, it's like I don't believe if any of the ZK rollups can ever have that, because you need
Interesting.
to actually execute the transaction on chain in the L1,
Yeah,
and that's by nature what optimistic rollups does. But for ZK rollups, the infrastructure does not exist, so you cannot execute and like roll up transaction on L1. It doesn't mean anything unless you just implement another optimistic like stack on top of a ZK rollup in the smart contract, and so it enables doing force inclusions.
that's that's too many layers.
Yeah,
It may be possible in the future, actually.
one of the way around this is to become like decentralized sequencer stuff, so that they cannot theoretically censor a transaction. So you don't need a force inclusion. Someone would include the
Yeah.
transaction eventually.
Yeah, that seems to be involved because I have a slide in here about like things along the roadmap, and one of the things that is being talked about is like reducing the need for these schemes that rely on relayers, right? Because then you always have the issue of
Yeah,
being dropped or censored, right? Just having some policy that they're prioritize some traffic and not others. But yeah, it
and
seems
trying
related.
anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's also better for privacy and
yeah,
everything like that.
definitely. Okay. Okay. Uh, Opus Stack and Superchain. They're gonna like become partner with Hyperlane, and they created something which they call Superlane. And again, what is Hyperlane? Hyperlane is a like a bridge infrastructure, as far as I know. They just like you can sign up your chain into their stack, and with just few buttons, few clicks, and so they automatically attach your chain to whatever else that is in their ecosystem. And basically like what's cool about Hyperlane is you can also use the CCIP. if you know what's that, like the chain
Yeah, the
link.
chain link
Yeah,
interoperability.
and also other eigen layer stuff, so that it gives you the option to choose between any of them, and depending on what level of security you want for your communication between different rollups, you can just choose that. And so what's cool about that is also Superchain is going to join the game for them, like, and so it is also partly connected to what I'm gonna talk about like in a bit. It's like the interoperability um movement that has happened like recently among the community, and one of the like the pillars of that is also hyperlane. And so as you already probably know, like Optimism is one of the biggest companies who are pushing those narrative strongly. So the fact that they're partner with hyperlane maybe means something. Eventually all the other gonna like do the same thing. You don't know. uh this one, because I personally love ZK, and especially the ZK hack. So if you're also into that, a ZK whiteboard session, the season 2 also is shipped off. And today was supposed to be the first session. For some reason, they push it for the next week. But if you really want to like get into that, I definitely recommend. It's one of the good resources out there. You can just like join their talks or whatever.
Aztec, I haven't heard that name in some time.
Aztec.
Yeah, Aztec. That was like one of the
Yeah,
original ZK
yeah,
privacy
yeah.
experiments.
And also recently they also published one of something they call it the alpha builder phase 2. So yeah, they're gonna push like they they went to mainnet by another network which supports other stuff, and they were one of the like the programs that they published recently, so you can join that as well. um okay, so some of the things around the flashbots. um I don't know if you saw this, but one of the guys in flashbots proposed that they can parallelize the stuff that is going on in the builder, and so you can pretty much build like create a builder which is much more faster than the others, and so absorb much more MEV in the PBS game. And it was one of the like the biggest things that happened recently. To me, it sounds super interesting because you can imagine like the transactions that are coming to a block, they may just touch um intersection, they may have intersection in the like state that you're touching, and so parallelizing that execution is really tough. So one of the things that is like seems also interesting is that um the access in one of the like EIPs that was like is already also working. Like you can choose the access list of a transaction in Ethereum, and so if you set that access list correctly, this parallelized builders know which state slots you're gonna touch eventually in during execution, so they know how to parallelize the tasks. And so if you're like a good user who choose the right access list, they will give you some kind of like um permission that like they can mine your transaction earlier, so they can give you some like promotions.
Priority,
Yeah,
yeah.
priority. And so that's how they're
That
working.
idea sounds very familiar, actually. Exactly.
Moonlight also does the same
Yes.
thing. So apparently we have some questions in the chat somewhere in Slack. So if
Wow.
anyone, yeah, I don't know if
Should we check it on the computer there? Or?
someone can check them. Oh no, it was from Tangle. Okay, never mind. I
Well, what does Tangle have to say?
have no idea. Okay, so
Ooh.
another thing from Flashbots, what they call roll up boost. And I think it's the technology that is being used in the Unichain, as far as I know. And basically like
Which is Uniswap's
yeah,
roll up.
Uniswap chain, exactly. That's also another interesting question, like why should we have a chain for swaps? If you
It's like an app chain. Presumably, it'll
um
do slightly more than that, but
yeah, it is an app chain, but the swaps are like if you want to change like exchange some token, then the best place to do that is the native chain for that token. But the Uniswap
Yes,
chain,
it will be interesting to see, you know, how the fees drop off because Uniswap is still like one of the most interacted contracts. It's responsible for a huge amount of like Ethereum
yep,
burn below maybe or like above maybe like transfers.
yep.
And once that gets rolled up, it's way more efficient. So you're expecting like I don't know a lot of more people to be using the Unichain app chain to make up for that.
But they need to transfer first to the app chain, to the Unichain, and then do the swap, and then come back. And so
Yeah, yeah.
it
You
adds
don't end up.
lots.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You don't end up with the native asset. You end
Yeah,
up with bridged asset.
yeah.
Yeah,
And other than that, what happened to the liquidity that is already living in Ethereum? You're gonna like move them all into the other chain?
yeah.
Is it even a thing? Like how do you possibly turn off the unit version 2 in the Ethereum? I don't think it's possible.
I'll let you know some other
Can
some
you
other project.
can you not do like a layer zero, like you lock the liquidity on the mainnet and you recreate a liquid asset on the Unichain? Like you
Um
keep the liquidity on the mainnet, you lock it, and you recreate an asset on the
yeah,
Unichain,
you're like exactly
like
the
layer
same thing
zero.
that happened with SushiSwap.
Yeah,
They just
you can do that, but I think there's still the idea that you're paying for the messaging and there's like propagation time.
Yeah, but you can do like a roll up and send it every I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
how many
You
transactions.
it's just not. It's sort of like you're abstracting it, but you're getting slower and paying slightly more for what?
But not really, because if you do the transaction on Unichain, you don't pay the layer one fees, and you just pay the roll up every I don't know any transaction.
Yeah, you okay, I see what you're saying. You eventually get the result of the swap,
Yeah,
but it's executed there. Yeah, I don't know. I think if you think about it like cow swap is sort of similar in that it's just like trying to settle in any way it can and you don't really have insight into that while it's going, but it's very good at matching that kind of thing. Yeah, I could see that. I think that people just want to know that that liquidity is actually, abstracted uh, correctly and it doesn't run into any weird issues where it's not backed by the underlying.
but you just lock one by one, like layer zero.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You like lock and
But you
unlock.
need, yeah, it needs to check that. I guess
Yeah,
it
yeah.
needs to
Yeah.
be able to query that balance, from what I understand. Not my area, but yeah, I could see there being some, interop glue that makes it possible.
Yeah.
It just is it as fast as mainnet could be, whatever. Or
yeah, maybe. But I think like the most meaningful app chain for these kind of like swaps is probably the perps, because you
Mhm.
inherently don't need the token itself. It's just like the perps. So that makes sense to be a tap chain like Hyperliquid. But for Unichain, it's a bit complicated and more reasoning got involved.
Yeah. Anyway, about this, let
Yeah,
if we could.
this one. So they are basically like putting the entire roll up thing into TEE, as far as I understood. And so what is TEE is like trusted execution environment, and um it is it's like gives you some guarantee that the ordering and stuff are secure and they don't do MEV shits on that. And so what's funny is they claim that they are going to they're like giving 250 milliseconds block interval time, which is huge. And verifiable priority ordering because they are using the T, and T is already one of the um solutions for like the second factor authentication on besides the ZK. For example, if you have like the ZK rollup, and so one way to prove everything has gone right was through is through ZK, and the other one is to if the company can prove that the rollup nodes are operating on top of a inside the TEE, then they don't need a ZK proof theoretically, because TEE is supposed to be um like secure by nature. Like the CPU does what we tell the CPU to do, and then it cannot forge anything. Like no one can can't do any other shits on beside
Yeah.
the thing that they have to do.
And no one can export the key that was derived
Yeah.
in it. Does everyone understand like what we mean by TEE and the execution environment, like what properties it has? Um, well, it doesn't have to be hardware based, although those exist. It can be software based, but you can picture it like a type of enclave or abstract area of a machine that runs certain code and can prove that it's running that code unmodified, right? It can attest to some hash of code, and you have a very strong guarantee that that's what's running inside of it, and it can't be modified, right? Which also means that you can do some key derivation in there, and now you have a private key that no one actually controls, but it'll respond to signing requests. So the only thing that's leaving is a signature or some, other cryptographic artifact. And what that means is that, someone's hosting, like, obviously it could go down, like there's a provider, maybe it's Amazon or something like that, or someone unplugs the machine. But while it's running, there are very strong, hard guarantees about what code it has and that no one can even take it apart or hack it and remove that key and do something else with it. So imagine that your rollup is delegated to this. That means that, like, all right, well, for this version, it's going to run as the code says, because we publish the code open source. It's going to run, and no one can change how it operates or take over the signing keys or admin rights or what have you. Does that make sense?
I think recently there were like lots of hacks
Yeah.
against
There's
TEs.
lots of hacks with like the Intel SGX and other like types of this. But if we get to a good implementation, you can reasonably say that it has these properties. It also has an interesting property of like normally if I tell you if you prove that you have a certain secret, you can't also prove that you like forgot the secret. You could always have written it down somewhere else. Like I'm just like, all right, delete this, word in your brain. Like you can never prove that you just did that. You could just be lying, right? But with the TE, you can actually like provably revoke a secret, which is kind of cool as well.
Yeah.
So if it works, as you said, like if we can confirm that it has these properties, then it's really useful.
Yeah. Exactly. You want to say
No, but it was more so if you do an update on your code, you need to recreate a new TE.
Well, not exactly. You could say that like, all right, our system will respect like a new, version of this running in like imagine the TE like of like a harder virtual machine, and I would assume that you could like say like, all right, everyone socially agrees that we're upgrading this thing and that we're only going to respond to, you know,
Because I mean the
code this kind of code, the code that we've published and everyone has verified, and then we, attest to it. So, but yeah, it might. I think it would be a new TE. Yeah, I think so, unless it was already like preloaded there.
because the security issue will be who can update this TE.
Yeah, it would be more like, all right, we have this idea of the protocol, and then we're like, we all choose to recognize, a new TEE or a new, target for it. But yeah, no, good point in that the upgrading might need to be done by like a DAO or something like that, or never, you know. Yeah.
yeah.
Like there are definitely some protocols on Ethereum that like technically still run. Like I was even looking at a dashboard before. Everyone remembers Ether Delta, which was like the first DEX, and like you can still withdraw from Ether Delta. You can still do certain things, but like there's no front end for it, and everyone forgot about it. But like it works forever. There's just no orders on it. So it's a little bit like that. Like it'll just fossilize, and then people forgot they had money in it or whatever.
But also like people tend to use it as the backup of the other method to say like to prove the security,
Yeah.
and feel like it's gonna be maybe like the second factor authentication for ZK Rollup, as I said, as like ZK Sync is already trying to do that, and but when it gets production, we don't know. But going back to this one, so one of the coolest thing that this T also provide is what they call AS, like application specific sequencing, and which means like redirecting back the MEV to the applications. It has some good effects and has also some bad effects as well, but it is what it is. Like T enables that as well. Um, no objection.
Pretty cool. But yeah, we're skeptical about Unichain.
Yep, it wants. Okay, this one, which I briefly touched upon previously, the Ethereum Interop Forum, which is kind of like being led by Optimism, I would say, and Ethereum as well, the foundation. So basically, like they are trying to standardize this kind of like interoperability, um, like APIs that already exist. So because like we have lots of them and we don't know which one's better and we have no idea what's gonna become better, and they just set up this forum which is like a bunch of companies, and it just starts in DevCon, I believe. And so they're gonna be like separate rooms for that. So just they sit down and talk and discuss and reach to some conclusion which of these protocols are better. And also as a result of this, on on this one, give me a sec.
Sorry, I inserted those.
Okay, it's okay. So, anyways, we later gonna go back to this, but just wanted to give a um, just like briefly touch upon this one, which is going to be really big. And so you can imagine like if they can if they can decide like on a single API stuff that all of them are going to use, and so later this um like the instant interoperability can become something real. And so you can just send transaction from one chain to another chain instantly. And so we'll see though. Yeah, I think this part is your most interesting part. Like
Oh yeah, this is all the EIPs in
Yep,
Pectra.
yep.
Yeah, I'm not too excited about it because I'm not like a consensus layer guy. A lot of these are like quality of life improvement for validators, especially large ones, and everything to do with staking. But they're necessary. And the one that I was most interested in, because it's like in EVM wheelhouse, although I guess there are like execution layer stuff there. Oh, they're adding a precompile. That's one for BLS 12. I don't even know what that is. Well, I know what BLS is, but like which one? Um,
Was on one of the ZK stuff.
yeah. Does everyone know what a precompile is? Okay. It's this kind of, well, we have, all right, so we have like two main entities of like account types in Ethereum, and it's based on the idea of whether there's code there or not. And this actually is relevant to 7702. There's what we call EOA, which is externally owned account, which means that, well, until it sends a transaction, we once it sends a transaction, that means it's a public key on chain. We know that it has a corresponding private key, right? And that's usually like, all right, this is you've generated this in a wallet. Someone has signed for it. Maybe even is a TE. And then there's if your account has some code that was some bytecode or source code that was published to it and verified, we know that that account address is not an actual key. It doesn't correspond to a pair. I mean, I guess a key pair could exist theoretically, but it's mathematically unlikely. It was the result of hashing a nonce and some, init code and everything to deploy. We call that a contract account, and we know that it executes faithfully and has some storage associated with it, right? Precompile is almost like a set of addresses. They're actually like 0x. We know the 0 address is like a special one in Ethereum, or the like null account. They're like the one, increment that by one. All right, that's a precompile. Increment that by one again, like number 2, account 2, that's also a precompile. And what they are just enshrined protocol code that acts like a contract, but no one deployed it. It's part of like Genesis, and it has certain, it behaves differently in terms of gas costs and everything like that. Now, if you have been paying attention, sometimes those have caused problems, and they're actually not really well. They're not like well used. Um, People don't tend to reach for them. They're like kind of exotic cryptographic functions or hashing. Um, I guess the most used one is probably like the one that does, I forget what it's called, but it's EC recover. If you've ever implemented that, which is needed to check that a
Signatures.
signature is correct. But if you look at like how much they're actually used versus like the overhead and like complexity that they bring, nah, I think they're on the chopping block eventually. So adding a new precompile is kind of interesting, and I couldn't tell you why they're doing that, but that doesn't happen that often, and it looks like it was created 4 years ago. Um, let's see. That serve historical block hashes from state is also interesting, but maybe that's even something that you know more about. I guess while we're on that topic, 7702 is kind of interesting. I've seen this being called like account abstraction, right? Which is basically you know making signers and the wallet that you interact with a little more mixed in its capabilities, right? Um, this one is interesting because it's more like execution abstraction. Now, I just said that the way we define an EOA versus a contract is that it doesn't have some executable code associated with it. Well, people have made smart contract wallets, right? And there's a whole standard around that about like, it signs on your behalf and someone else can some other entity can relay the transactions and sponsor the gas and everything like that, like, but it relies on an entry point someone else controls. With 7702, it becomes more like for within a transaction, so like it's in reverted at the end, or it goes back to how it was. An EOA can temporarily point to some code and it'll execute in the context of that EOA. So you get kind of this like native account abstraction that's safer because it's not, I'm not delegating that forever, or for like some other time period, just within my very specific transaction. And you can do a lot of cool stuff like that. So I don't know if you've interacted with like Permit 2 or anything like this, um, which lets you sign on behalf of a contract and like, do some token operation, like say buy something with stablecoin, right? Only certain ones support that. It would allow you to bundle, say, like approval and swap at the same time, and then like you wouldn't have to worry about that. You can do more complex things that previously you could, like, I don't know, multi-sig or smart contract account. 702 would let you point to some contract code that you would execute as EOA, and so you get all this like nice little account abstraction or abstracted execution goodies with that. And there are more security considerations because it kind of breaks the idea that like, all right, we only verify the message sender and not the transaction origin. There's more that they've covered in the CIP, but it's kind of cool because, again, to recap, it makes EOAs a little more hybrid like and a little more abstractable, which is nice. But your wallet has to. I think it's a different transaction type, and your wallet has to support that for you to use it. But it's coming in Pectra, which would be pretty cool, and definitely affect like your day-to-day swapping and transacting. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I just wanted to say these like new fancy transaction types maybe also become an attack vector because normal users have no idea what's going on, and so it happened a lot that people got asked by MetaMask to just sign some random shit, and
Yeah,
so they did it.
that they can't read. Yeah.
Yeah, and this one, if the user experience is not rolled out like in a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
way, then um
The good thing is there's not that many parameters in it. I think it could be more complex if it was like, all right, imagine the bytecode is part of the transaction, or like, it just has like so many parameters. Whereas this is like, I don't know, chain ID and, very few things. And like delegate to this one, it could even be like, delegate to this code and only run this particular function. But yeah, then you still need function signatures and all this other
yeah,
stuff to decode.
but if the user accepts that, then if the code is malicious, everything is
Yeah, yeah.
gone.
But only for that one transaction, like atomically. That's what I was looking for before. Yeah.
Mm.
No, if you read the EIP and the discussion around it, like they did a really good job of answering you know, the attack vectors it opens up or like the things it changes. Um, I think it's like very forward compatible too. Whereas uh, 4307 was not.
Oh, okay. So you said like this one is just for the transaction that is right now being executed and
Yeah, yeah. Only
not the
within the
future
context
ones.
of the current transaction, and then it reverts. Like, so you can tell that something is in EOA, but it is like taking on execution of a certain contract. And imagine that now it's like, all right, there's a precompile or some other system contract that like everyone knows is like very safe to use, uh, and we're just executing in that context. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything else about it, but yeah, you still look at them and you can tell they're EOAs and whatnot. And yeah, the rest of it is I don't know. Anyone else? Is anyone like a validator? Are you like actually, you shouldn't say that you're a huge validator or anything like that. You should never divulge that. But yeah, it allows them to shuffle the balance around and do nicer things, which is complex because these people may have been staking and validating, running validators since like before the merge, so for years, and like it's safe. It's hard to have them like, all right, they have to rotate keys, they have to shuffle around their balances and spin up new validators, and that's all like in mid-flight. Like the chain still has to finalize too, so you can't do that in a way that disrupts the operations of consensus. So you know, there's a lot of engineering work that goes into it, but it's not that exciting for like the small fry users or anyone that's not a super hardcore home staker. Um, that's all I know about that. Although look, they're increasing the blob target
Yeah.
and max limit, so that's like performance for rollups. Is the implication of that? Yeah, and this should be happening pretty soon. Pectra upgrade,
Yeah,
right?
probably. I think by the end of 2024 maybe.
Yeah. All right. So by the end of the year,
Yep.
I think that was a good compromise because I remember it being actually much larger in terms of VIPs, and then it was like split.
Yep.
Um,
So did you know what's this one? Like the move community index outside of the station.
hmm.
That's pretty interesting because right now
No,
the
tell me about it.
like the attestation committees right now aggregate the signatures within that committee, and so we have this like BLS signature stuff. And one of the things that I think had happened is because the committee index is within the signature, the text that is being signed, you cannot theoretically sign the signatures from different committees together. Like you cannot aggregate them together because the text is different.
Okay.
And so if you move the committee index outside this, like the text, and because all of the committees high likely are signing the same thing, you can aggregate them again. And so it becomes like the aggregation of the aggregation. And so it adds to like a scalability of the network eventually. But I don't know like what is a compromise here because you're removing some part of the signature, the text.
Yeah.
It becomes malleable, but probably it doesn't add any security issues.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that one. Yeah, it should save some node bandwidth.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you need to see these things for like I don't know incremental optimization of the requirements of running a node. We have
Yeah.
to remember the home staker that has a little machine, um, and certain
Exactly.
bandwidth constraint.
Okay.
But yeah, the next slide was just me talking about 702, so
You
like you
already
can
did it.
skip. Yeah. But the other thing is, I don't know, anyone see like, all right, so you know, people misunderstood the roadmap. They were like, "Oh, Ethereum doesn't have a North Star. We don't understand it, right?" And like, yeah, it was complex. It's actually like a parallel roadmap with like, the merge, the surge, the purge, the verge, etc., the splurge, and then Vitalik would sometimes return to X or some channel and then show you this like giant infographic with like little bars filling up, and people weren't satisfied with that, so he started writing blog posts about it, and I think he just completed them. Did anyone read most of those? that they're like, fairly readable but still nerdy. And then I believe Evan Van Ness has been summarizing them to some effect. So go read those because they're very interesting. Um, you know, better ways of putting or specifying like what the roadmap looks like, and even where the EIPs are at. Like, have they been implemented in all the clients, or like which clients, and like how close are they to coming to a future upgrade, or even just like the trade-offs, because there's still ongoing research about which path to choose for something. I find it most interesting where there's like this like old idea that you know became I don't know, sidetracked. Like it's like
Plasma?
sorry.
With plasma?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good example of it. Like there was some old idea that was proposed, and then they didn't end up going with it. But like it was still there as like an obsolete EIP, and then they like find a way to revive it, right?
Yeah.
Like those are like pretty interesting. Like I saw something about I think I was most reading about the purge, which is all about reducing I guess the aim, the north star, if you will, of that is to reduce the storage requirements um, for the chain for node operators, and also to like remove complexity from the protocol, like critical debt and like Cruft, that like adds to that issue. And one of the things that popped up in there is again like something that looks like sharding, which was actually a scalability paradigm that they didn't go with. They went with rollups instead, right?
Yep.
But something that the thing that reminded me of there was like, all right, Vitalik envisions like I don't know, like 100,000 nodes running at some point, um, and it turns out, well, they don't actually all need to have a full copy of the chain. They can have like a randomized 10% shard or stripe of that, and then as long as it's actually random, you get what 10,000 copies or something. Like you get a good guarantee on those, and then all they need to do is when they need to figure out who has what, right? But we already have that solved with like data availability sampling and all that uh, technology that's now live, right? So it kind of comes together. It's why it feels like an ecosystem that like it doesn't really discard an idea, but it'll like wait for its time and then create the assemblage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. But yeah, along that line, probably like check out ZK sharding.
Yeah,
Maybe later.
I know less about that. But anyway, I just wanted to point out, like, go read Vitalik's blog post if you're like, there's no roadmap, or the roadmap's hard to understand, or I don't like the roadmap. Like, you'll like it by the end. There's only like 7 of them or something.
Yeah, but that's actually like nicely written.
Yeah,
I
yeah, it
read
is. It
read
is.
some of them.
It's well written, yeah, and not too, crazy overhead.
Yep. Okay, just quickly go over this one. I'm sure like some of you know who's Dan Robinson. He is like the I think founder or co-founder of Uniswap. And so they released not released but just they proposed some way to create um automated market makers for prediction markets. So what it means is some of the assets are involved in some like speculation, such as like predictions or like I don't know poly market probably, and like perps maybe I don't know. And so for those assets, it turned out that they like the constant product curve that we are probably all familiar with is not a good choice. And they come up with just like this random equation on the bottom. I have no idea what it means, but usually what Dan Robinson propose is a good thing. So if you're if you're interested, I definitely like recommend to just check this out. And you want to like talk a bit about that? You have any idea? Is no, it's not for like AI, but um these look similar to some I don't know like differentiation or something, but it basically like means you can mention like there's a curve that shows like if you are creating a DEX, which we're gonna like trade A token with B tokens. And so this the number of A's and number of B's in this like pool, liquidity pool, has to follow some formula eventually. So that if everyone's just come up with 10 A tokens, we need to know how much B tokens we should give to the user. And so, one of the most popular ones is the constant product formula, which says you have to preserve the multiplication of the token reserves after and before the trade. So, for example, if like there is 10 of this token and 10 of the other token, and someone is giving you two tokens of the first one, so like 12 multiplied by something should be equal to 100, and that something tells you how much from the other token you need to give to the user. And what it says is for some kind of tokens, like the prediction markets, that like constant product is not a good option. And there's like a crazy math discussion behind this. I haven't gone through it, but you eventually like end up with this crazy thing, and it is apparently like much more efficient. And by efficiency, I mean the users pay less and gain more, and also the liquidity providers also gain more in the fees. So
It, do you know that is there just something different about how people interact with prediction market that makes that the case that it's not as efficient, or where does that where does that inefficiency coming from?
Okay, just a disclaimer. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's what
But
I'd be interested in because I
yeah,
don't understand that either.
I
But
just like put it here
I know
because it
people
sounds
have
interesting.
experimented with AMM since since it was invented, really.
Yeah.
But
Was
it's
it invented?
you get him the mic.
Give it a second. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you're live.
Uh-oh. So like setting some kind of premise to maybe explain to people who are less, understanding in different levels what a market maker is, what's his actual target, or actually what's the target of an AMM in this kind of market, like what they're trying to achieve. So basically, like the basic silhouette of this, because I know what a market maker is. I'm not really sure what the AMM
For perps
value
or like
proposition is, other than getting the spread, which is the classic market maker
yeah.
target.
Um. So basically, I would say like they are used for trading eventually, like not much, but trading is important because everyone like apparently one of the most use cases of blockchain today is just trading. And okay, so like if you see like what happened to Uniswap v3 to Uniswap v3, okay, so basically like they came up with the idea that let's just concentrate this liquidity into some small range of price, whereas in the like v2 we had the whole range. And if you think about it, like in the in the like in the close proximity of the axes, the liquidity is not ever be used because you need to provide infinite liquidity to take the entire assets of the other token out of the pool. So that's not a good thing because yeah, you cannot. And also like what happens is the liquidity provider are not being paid enough because the entire liquidity is not being used. So what they came up with was that let's just concentrate it within some specific range. And so if someone is going to like trade within this range of price, then the liquidity is being used. With like in return, the fees become like
And,
more.
and a provider can also react to that and say like, all right, I'm going to move back in range where I'm actually incentivized to provide liquidity, um, or like pool. Yeah. For this or for I think we're like building up the case of explaining how V3 like concentrated liquidity AMM is different, and then I think he was gonna go with how a prediction market is
I
distinct from
don't
that.
know about why it
Yeah,
works,
okay.
but yeah, that was just like a build up for this one.
Yeah, yeah. But But the whole, I guess, the whole point and how I would consider it different is like, all right, there's a market maker as an entity that's like behaving in an order book, and then there's like an automated, there's like the contract which needs to have a more simplified, codified version of that relationship. But then they found it was like actually inefficient, for certain use cases. So it's sort of like you're not forced to set those parameters about what range you're providing liquidity at, but many do elect to do it, and I just think uh, because V2 is easier to use and has been around long enough, like most of the pools are on some version of V2, whether they're Uniswap or some other fork. They're not these other exotic kinds. Did you want to say something? We got to get you the mic.
I mean, for V3, since liquidity is concentrated, if you have like a big variation of price, is it more useful to use V2?
Um, it depends on what is the profit, like what is the objective function here. If if the price is also going to be too volatile, um, still using V3 I would say is better because eventually liquidity providers, actually not so true.
Because if you go out of the range, you're not.
That's true, but like you can always like set the range to be so high. But if it's actually like infinite range, the volatility, then probably V2 is better. Not sure. We can do the math and see if it's better.
Maybe in a crab market, it's better to be in liquidity V3. But if you are in bull market and everything go up after, if the two assets go up at the same time, so yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. And also what's interesting about V3 is it can act as a, I think, market like limit or limit order, if I'm not wrong. If you're like a liquidity provider and the price of the asset becomes like outside of your range, then you basically change your tokens to the other one. And so um is it margin call? Because you're not losing, you're actually trading here. You're swapping the asset. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. But yeah, it's like one of the strategies that people use for V3. Um okay. Anyone else want to like discuss anything about this?
Yeah. I actually have something to send you related to this afterwards, but I won't bring it up now because I'm not an expert in it. But yeah, if you're interested in like options and liquidity pools and how those interact, it was from Owen originally.
Yeah, cool. I'm so happy that there are people who care about these things. I wasn't sure that should I put it here or not because like people usually don't care about the math. Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah. And prediction markets are hot. Well, for now
We
they
will
were.
get to,
They
we get
were.
to that. We get to that.
Yeah. But what are we gonna bet on next?
One of the key points is like finding the formula for that and then implement it into the code. This is one of the challenges. The formula. I don't know, guys. If is this formula ever been tested?
They just published the paper.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
probably have.
I assume they're simulating, right? But
yeah.
Would be interesting.
we shall see. I don't know. That could be.
I think they said like, I read the first paragraph and they said if anyone wants to build it or like wants to experiment it, just free to go. Maybe it becomes we need to have V5 eventually.
Cool. Thanks.
No worries. Okay, let's go quickly to the next one. Wow, this one. Okay, so it's one of the candidates for Interop Forum that I mentioned previously. This ERC 7683, and basically it's like the joint work between Uniswap and Across, and is about the intents. And what our intents are basically like the user, instead of saying that I want to transfer like Ether to Bitcoin, this amount of Ether to this amount of Bitcoin, and via this route, the user just come out and say, "Hey, I want some Bitcoin, and here's my Ether in one of the chains, and I don't care where is it." And so the DApp does the whole thing, and this like ERC right now has gotten so much attention, especially even right now that we are talking. School has announced that they are joining the school.
Is this going to be discussed at the Interop forum
Yep,
or
yep,
okay?
especially there. And there are some numbers that Cross has published recently, which is a comparison between how much is the delay between the asset transfers via
Oh,
this.
we were just talking about such a thing, were we not?
Yeah,
Data to know.
it's really good. And so they they like, if you say this one, it takes 3 seconds median, whereas via CCTP, which is the bridge for Circle USDC, it takes 1,000 seconds. And usually for the rollups, if you use the canonical chain, it takes few minutes, but 3 seconds, it's, I don't know like what to say, it's ultra fast. And
Absolutely.
yeah, you can basically see what happens next. As right now, as I said, the school also joined them, not joined them, but they are probably gonna like deploy ERC 7683 in their chain, and I'm assuming that other people also would do that later. It's one of the big things. Okay.
Oh, you already
Oh
had a
yeah,
thing about that.
yeah. We already talked about it.
Okay, but Empire is like multi-sig or something.
I don't know. I just like
Yeah,
borrowed the
yeah.
picture.
No. I've seen them come up before. It's a type of like multi-sig provider. Um, I guess it also offers interesting account recovery options, which a lot of these providers do. Like they could be like social recovery, because you could like swap out the keys to like withdraw eventually if you lost your you know your private key or ability to sign. So that's kind of interesting. Like I guess I would expect all of them that are serious dApps and wallet providers to start implementing it and making it available. So it's kind of cool.
Next one. Okay. Holy market. What
They
do you
were
say about
very
this
accurate. Yeah.
one? How is it possible? So, but I
Well,
actually
it's especially funny because it's like, all right, they're predicting the electors uh, that each state will choose, right? Okay, like in terms of when they'll win for either party, but everyone using Polymarket is supposed to be not a U.S. citizen. So how do they have inside information about particular states, right? Like you're telling me that like the French quants know what's happening in Montana, or they just that's how I would react to that. But like,
That's a good one. But I haven't ever used Polymarket. Is it like, when is the deadline to join the vote inside the Polymarket? Can you do it like up until the deadline of the actual event? So isn't
but
it
just
like
like we were talking,
ridiculous?
the range might be like I don't know how you. I think that they set. I'm not sure about this market, but like the overall like binary one of like who's gonna win. They just wait for like media to call it, and then it's run by UMA Optimistic Oracle. That all the oracles that are staking there, like all the providers, they have to like come to a consensus and vote on it.
Mhm.
They actually have to vote, and then once that resolves, they have like, all right, well, they voted on different spectrum of news agencies calling it, and they're super careful about this, for historical reason, but also because they're waiting for all these states to, reach a certain threshold of like expected vote, right? Like this is how many people we expected to vote, or like, to turn out, and then like having counter all those and be like, all right, there's no path to victory to gain these electoral college votes. Like it wouldn't even matter if it 5% came in low. So it kind of like bubbles up. If you could picture it, it bubbles up from all those states, and then the media agencies, call it like the news networks. I think like NBC is one or something like that. And then the Oracle provide the UMA Oracle's validators sign off on it, and then the poly market resolves. Only then that happens. And like I think there has been a time in the past, maybe you can speak to it, where like the market resolved, and then like it turns out that was like premature, and the actual like thing that happened in the world was different. But that's you know,
Oh, what was that about?
I'm trying to remember what it was. It was something where just like the fact that it relied on the media outcome was, that was what was spurious. It's like everyone was fooled for a bit, and then like it turned out. No, it wasn't related to election. It was something else, but it was on Polymarket. We should look that up, but someone can maybe look that up of like where the market resolved, and it was actually like a different situation than what occurred in the real world. But we didn't know that until after that happened. So it was like the protocol worked. They did their job, but like yeah, like things can change. Yeah. So that's how I know it works. I have not used it personally.
Okay, people in the chat say just front run UMA,
The what?
the Oracle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that works. At least in this case. Okay. This one was one of the funniest one. It happened
Okay.
earlier today.
The Frenchman made too much money on it. Is what I'm reading now.
So don't use Polymarket that much. Like $48 million,
Yeah.
and the government wants to shut down Polymarket in French. You should ask him. I have no idea.
Yeah. No, I think there's a concern that like I mean, if I recall in the past in the U.S. like there used to be like betting odds on all sorts of political outcomes published in the newspaper. So like this is like a long history of this idea. And then only recently people have been like, oh, well, the problem is that it's self-fulfilling prophecy where like if this guy makes a huge bet on this, I get this is kind of what you want because you want it to reflect like accurately probabilities in the real world. And so what that does is it incentivizes insiders to like bring their information in,
Yeah.
like, right? They have put their skin in the game. It's not just like a wisdom of the crowd. It's kind of like if you know something that no one else knows, we want to also know it, and the way to do that is to like basically bribe you to to put that on the market, to make that bet publicly, let's say, right? Put it on chain. But I think they're worried that like, all right, well, imagine you're bluffing with a lot of money, then you push up those odds, or like the public perception of it before the information is actually coalesced that way.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know whether that happens or not. It's kind of complex, but
You don't want to like talk to the member.
I think what you are saying is making a well good point, but at the end, I think they want to make it forbidden, just because in France, betting is from the Argel, and you have the public company called FDG that manage everything on betting. So they want their part of money on it.
yeah, it's
But
out of their
okay.
purview. Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's more likely, it being the EU and everything like that. But I just thought I should steel man like why people are worried about everything going into prediction market and like one whale moving it all the way in one direction and then changing people's mind. But I think yeah, that's actually simpler and a little that they don't have control over it, right? Or they're not getting the cut. They're not getting the cut of Polymarket, which is I think we should stress is built on Polygon, which is a side chain, or Polygon proof of stake, which is a side chain of Ethereum and the EVM.
Cool.
Very important.
Interesting. Oh, okay. So this one is really quick. Nethermind has spin up another rollup, which they call it ultra based, and let's see what it does. Some of the interesting facts about it. Zero users. Oh, wow. There's not gonna be any users using this rollup, but it's gonna be stage 2 at the launch, which means super secure, like censorship
Oh,
resistance.
built on Tycho.
Yeah, built on Tycho, and it's pre-confirmation, composability, and lots of other things. But that's just built for the developers
Giga gas.
to just see how a bass rollup, ultrasound,
Yeah.
and stage 2 feels like when you're interacting with it. And so,
All right, that's pretty cool.
yeah,
And it's open source. Yeah.
yeah, probably.
And
Should be.
and what I'm recognizing is it has all of these what I'm calling goodies again that are on Ethereum roadmap. They're subject to like some level of research, but we don't have them, or we don't have them all in one roll up project. And this is like giving it to you with like I don't know with real money, right?
I don't think it's a real money.
Okay.
It's
okay.
like DevNet probably.
Okay.
I don't
I was gonna say like, what if
No,
we just like
definitely not,
release it and
because
see what happens?
If it was that easy, then everyone
Yeah.
else can become just
Well,
stage 2.
I could see it being like a like I don't know. You played ever MMOs? There's like this is a PvP realm, and you only enter if you know like you accept all the risks that like you'll get ganked and your stuff will be taken.
I'm not sure if like it's like zero users.
Yeah, yeah.
Like how can it be real?
Well,
money?
you would send your agent there. You'd be like, here, take this, and well, I
actually
don't
like
know.
it's funny how can a roll up be zero user?
Well,
What is a user?
I I think they're just being playful with that. Like their target is that they don't want consumer, actual people that have the keys to run on it. But like your, autonomous agent or script, your bot
Mm.
can play there. So like they're just calling bots not users, but like
Yeah,
probably
maybe.
probably most of the users on blockchain are bots or bot like, right?
Good one. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I think everything looks so much more sinister when it's inverted color. Like even Pam from The Office was like in dark mode.
But I think people on the screen, like in the recording, doesn't see that.
Oh, really? Only we see it. Okay. Well, yeah. It's creepy.
Yeah, it is. You want to speak? What is it?
Yeah, what happened? Oh, yeah, these guys at
Yeah.
Ethereum Foundation, they're like preeminent experts in their field, and they had very cushy well, they announced very, nice advisorships with Eigenlayer, which is a particular restaking project, and it was seen as sort of a well, a conflict of interest, or at least the appearance of a conflict of interest, and they voluntarily, you know, dissolved the position. So very, very honorable. Like, I mean, this was probably like extremely lucrative deals for these guys, but like Ethereum needs to remain credibly neutral and not favor any one project, even if the project is important and cool. So I think there just wasn't like a code of ethics, or like maybe a procedure for this kind of thing where you have an official position at the foundation, or and then you moonlight in these other ones. Although I think even Vitalik did that in the past with like things that he invested in his portfolio. So important to like keep that transparent, public, and like nail it down. But that's all I have to say about that. I'm not saying that taking either side there.
I mean, it's good that they decided to um like leave all the shits other than Ethereum, but on the other side, if you remember, also Vitalik has said that Ethereum is supposed to be neutral, but I'm not. And so as a human, you have the choice that not be neutral towards anything because you're a human, you're not a machine.
Yeah, I think that's meant in like everything that's not, blockchain. Like imagine like, all right, he has the power to pick favorites in terms of Ethereum, right? Uh but yeah, I get you that that's more like geopolitical, and yeah. You're right, there's not like a big distinction for that. I also want to say that, like, all right, these Justin and Dankrod are not available for the advisorship, but I am. So if Eigenlayer's listening,
Yeah, why not?
hit me up.
It was maybe the last one. Oh, it is the last one. So I just wanted to like give a shout out to Polygon, which could reach to over 2 million hashes per second inside the circuit. That's a huge number. And
Wait, for what
so you can prove over
system is this?
um
Polygon ZK EVM?
yeah, no, like via the Plunky 3. It's like
Oh,
a tool
Plunky
set.
3.
Yep. Um
No, but I thought you said Polygon before.
yeah, like Plunky 3 is made by Polygon.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I know, but for the ZK EVM or what?
it is for the ZK
Okay, yeah.
EVMs, but it's not being used in any of the ZK EVMs yet. It's just like a bunch of tool
It's
sets.
experimental.
And that's not experimental. Like for example, it's like circuits, like Circom. You remember what's that Circom?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you can type Circom on Plunky 3. It's like a bunch of tools together, optimized for certain things.
Yeah, I guess my point is that, like, all right, this is in testing.
Oh,
They're showing
yeah,
these
yeah, yeah,
numbers,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
we don't have
Yeah,
that yet on.
yeah.
We can't do that on Polygon ZK
yeah,
EVM
you
yet.
cannot do. Yeah, I mean, it's
But
not
soon.
soon. Yeah, but also like Vitalik has made a funny joke out of that, and so because apparently Vitalik really wants to know what is the result Blake and SHA 256, but they are still working on Poseidon. But yeah,
Sorry, can you explain the joke that he's making?
like okay, you guys have won the game, just give up. Do the other things. We don't care about Poseidon anymore. I mean, he doesn't care probably
Why does Vitalik not care about it?
because Poseidon, as much as I know, like it was some discussions.
It's a hashing
Yeah, it's
algorithm.
hash function, which is supposed to be ZK friendly, and ZK friendliness of Poseidon has been questioned recently, a year ago maybe. It has some nice features, like is operating on the fields that are native to ZK, but on the other hand, because industry has been working on SHA-256 and Blake 3 for a long time, the non-native hash functions over circuits has become widely used, and so they got super optimized already. And then at the time that they wanted to transition to Poseidon 2, like Poseidon in general, then these ones were already super fast. And so there was some kind of like controversy that why are we using Poseidon anymore? Because like SHA-256 is already super good, and so why not just using it? And other than that, Ethereum natively uses Kachak, not Poseidon, for the state. And that's one of the things that why they want to transition to vertical trees. But if everything is good already with non-ZK friendly hash functions, then there are some like discussions around why do we do that. I mean, right now is kind of resolved, I would say. Like people are going towards Poseidon and vertical trees. But the reason why Vitalik is still like pushing Shaw and Blake, I don't know. And also regarding Blake, I don't know if this one is also ZK friendly or not. I don't remember, but Shaw is definitely not.
Say that one more time.
Shaw is definitely not, but Blake, I'm not sure. Maybe Blake is also similar to Poseidon, but I don't remember.
No.
that.
What property were you saying that they have?
Like Poseidon is using the same fields and group arithmetics
Yes.
as Planck and like other zero knowledge proofs are using,
Okay.
similar to them. But Shaw in particular is just like they are not using fields in that sense. They're just multiplication and addition and like
Yeah.
XORs and stuff like that. So emulating those operations within the circuit is harder than those.
Yeah. It's not friendly to ZK,
It's not
as you
friendly.
said.
But
Okay.
yeah.
So he's saying, all right, you guys did the easy problem and you made an impressive number. Now try the harder, ones that are more relevant to us at the moment.
Yeah, and also I think it's saying something
If
else
I would
as well.
translate that.
Political
I
maximization.
like the word Merkling, by the way.
Yep. Okay, it was the end slide.
All right. That was a good end. I guess we could open it up if everyone still has the appetite for Ethereum talk. And you didn't fall asleep when we were discussing hash functions.
More general question. Do you think it's good that we have all this layer 2 coming?
Can you say that again?
But since we have more and more layer 2 coming, which with each of them have their specific application, is it good for Ethereum in general to have like hundreds of layer 2?
Or like, okay, layer two. You mean if this narrative of interoperability reach to some point that they can actually interact real time, then yes. But if it's not, I mean, it depends. Even like right now, if you take a look at the L2 beat, today I did it.
Ooh, can we pull it up maybe?
You want to open it?
Yeah, let me try.
Yeah.
I think that'll be interesting to look at, right? L2 beat. All right, go.
Okay, cool. So we know a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Arbitrum one base, OP mainnet. Then I just want to scroll it down. Maybe a better way. Let's just sort it via the TVL, but in the opposite direction. Yeah, this one. So we have bunch of L2s with like 0 TVL, 1,000, few thousand, and then I was today like going to say, what's the best way to declare my wallet as an L2? Because I probably have like more TVL than these. But but I mean, yeah, it depends on what's the functionality. Like many of them are just app chains, and so for instance, like Hyperliquid is an app chain. Yep, is it? Yep, and they are
Well, right now it's an app chain.
they
Yeah.
are right now is an app chain. Yet, so they are highly customized for the use case, which makes sense. But for some of them, probably like having the Arbitrum one and like optimism together is like just an instance of fragmentation, and so they can join somehow. But
I think they'll be stitched together where it makes sense with interop, protocols and
Yep.
the things we discussed. Like that's the vision of like that'll all be abstracted away, but for now they like go down their path of whatever they're, optimizing for. Or some of them, I think where they're very like EVM compatible, uh they actually add new precompiles and like kind of enshrined operations that they want to do or that they need more or that they were waiting on, on L1. And sometimes they're, they don't have to be an equivalent or similar VM at all, which is kind of interesting. So they can have different kinds of execution or blended execution, as
yeah,
we've seen.
we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. And to go back to Blob also. So right now, Ethereum is going back to be inflationist because DCL2 basically they don't pay fees to the mainnet.
Yep.
And I saw that on the next IEP there is some stuff about blobs. But can you tell me more about what Ethereum will do to like make this layer 2 participate more into the supply of Ethereum?
As far as I know, they were waiting for certain, demand to pick up and like raise the limit. Like there is like this, market of blob pricing and capacity, and it looks like they're just waiting for it to reach like close to a threshold, and then and then extending it again. So it's just like adding capacity slowly, graduated. Uh, and yeah, the volume of transactions needs to come from retail adoption stuff. It's not like I don't know how the L1 can, besides them relying on it for settlement and certain, I guess DA in the very like low level sense. I don't know what they can do. Like they can't like extract other rent from it. It really just has to. They have to help it grow, right? That's the only way that you see those fees trickle down or improve the financials of the L1. Is if blobs are being priced correct, like blobs are being bid and ETH is being burned. That's it.
Yeah, but if there is like if they use all the same stack, for example, if you use Optimist stake, do you so it's only one you need to go back only one time on Ethereum rollup, or how does it work? I mean, if you're using optimistic rollup,
Oh yeah, if you're an optimistic rollup, because they're different. They're actually different stacks. Like Arbitrum has its own.
so for each stack, they need to send only one time on the mainnet.
For every batch, you just post data one time in the L1.
So, for example, in this example, Base, does they send their own rollup to the L1, or Base
Yes.
that is Optimist they send to Okay.
Yeah. They don't. So I think they settled to the L1, but they're using the kind of like node software and everything that Optimism as also an L2, like part of the super chain. They're using with some customization like their stack, their like software, right? And node, and they customize something about the sequencer and everything like that. So but they are separate. I think what you're also somewhat describing is like an L3 scenario, which is only, as far as I know right now, I'm only familiar with the ones on Arbitrum, and those are like, yeah, they actually settle to, if they're an orbit chain, like say, what was that one? Degen, or Nova is, well, a slightly different stack, but yes, it's part of the same thing. Or Ape Chain, they settle to Arbitrum, so they're like just way faster, and then Arbitrum eventually rolls those up, um, and posts them to the L1. But yeah, actually, you reminded me of something I posted or I just read about today, where one of the L3s, I think Degen, is kind of being held hostage by its provider, by its rollup provider. So it's an L3, and it just relies on this rollup service provider, which I won't name because you can look it up. But they claim that, like, that it had an outage and it harmed their ecosystem, and then they had a verbal agreement with the provider, and the provider has their keys to like allow them to migrate, and they're like, sign this agreement, and they're like, well, we were not going to sign it because we don't like how we've been treated. And so they're at this kind of like impasse where they can't start the chain, the roll up again, and they're kind of stuck, and they can't migrate off of it, which is kind of interesting because yeah, you've allowed it to be all the provide, I guess, like sequencer and RPCs and block explorer. I'm trying to think of what else would be part of the infra with that, but like, yeah, it costs money to run those, and you eventually go to a provider that gave you a deal, but it wasn't in writing, and it certainly isn't on chain. You have no guarantees about the you have nothing like a service level agreement, let's say. So it's kind of interesting. They're kind of stranded, and I think it is really cool to like, I mean, terrible for the users and for those people on it, but you know, I like the idea of these natural experiments where like, all right, we talked a lot about yeah, what if the roll up itself goes rogue or fails in some way, and like, all right, well, we need an escape hatch, or like people need to be able to withdraw, and so it doesn't damage other parts of it. But like, what if the provider of the roll up, like the project itself, realizes they don't actually have control, and it's the provider, and the provider is like holding you ransom? Like, what happens then? I think that's kind of interesting to watch play out.
But one of the coolest features that Elastic Chain claim that they're gonna propose is you can have like sovereign rollups and sovereign smart contracts, so that one smart contract from an L3 can move itself to another L3, and like the entire rollup also can become another L2 if they want to. But yeah, they're too far from that.
Like we need to do more research
You need
to
to
make it
do more
possible.
research, and
Yeah.
also you can think of like how DA can become complicated. Like the data, where does it live if it's not in the L2, and if it's somewhere else,
Yeah,
it's got much more
that is
complicated.
interesting. But you know what I'm saying, if like well, we talk about these guarantees and like they seem abstract. They seem like, all right, well, how likely is that? And then it ends up being, well, there's a real world scenario that
Yep.
plays out, and then you like know how much you value those security guarantees or those decentralization guarantees.
Cool. I think it's better to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Thank you everyone to for showing up tonight. We wouldn't expect that this many people will show up because everyone is just DevCon.
Yeah.
But
We're
thanks everyone.
left behind.
Yeah, we left behind. Probably see you next week.
Yeah, we'll be here next week.
Yep.
I don't know what's on the slate, but
Cool.
every Thursday, EthVan, please come out.
Yeah, sure.
We'd love to see you.